I will not join the call, although we will anticipate eagerly any developments there. Kasi po, sa amin, because we already have filed the complaint, the House has already filed the complaint, and we are now anticipating the convening of the impeachment court. That would now be the proper venue for us to thresh out these issues. If the prosecution team feels na kulang pa po yung ebidensya or that they would like to seek additional evidence, the proper venue would also be through the impeachment court. Although nothing precludes po the House from conducting inquiries in aid of legislation as part of its legislative functions, and nothing would preclude other members of the House po to answer this call po ng kapwa congressman po namin.
Impeach the Vice President, and so we will really leave it to the Senate as to when they will convene to become a trial court.
Thank you, Rosalie. For today's second question, let us call on Tina Pangaliban Perez from GMA7.
For Prosec Congrog, will you be requiring the presence of Vice President Sara Duterte during the impeachment trial?
Again, we've yet to talk about yung specific matters such as this. Di pa po, wala pa naman pag-usapan, not even yung usual na, like your question last time, wala pa po akong update, wala pa pong division of work, wala pa pong ganun details. But as for the calling of the witnesses, first and foremost, hindi pa po yun yung nabanggit, no, hindi pa final. I can't say for sure if that we will call, although understandably it would be better for the it's actually the impeachment court will be able to, how do you call this, to mandate attendance naman po, no? But on the part of the prosecution team, definitely it would be better if the subject of the impeachment were there. If she were to be presented as a witness also by their defense, then we would have the opportunity also to cross-examine po, no? So sa kahit anong paglilitis po, mas maraming testigo, mas maraming ebidensya, mas maganda po. This goes both ways for the prosecution team and for the defense. Para po para lumabas po yung katotohanan. Any additional evidence or witness would be welcome po.
Sir, how much of the evidence is with the prosecution team already?
Without saying too much po, I think we have enough evidence. We have what we would say, I think it's more than enough, especially considering na, in our opinion, of course, depende pa rin po yun, ang impeachment case po ay not strictly criminal. It's sui generis, we've always mentioned this, it's more akin to an administrative matter po, no? Kasi the penalty, it's not punitive, wala pong makukulong, wala pong fines and penalties na may that would be implemented. Ang impeachment case lang po ang mayayari dito ay one, removal from office, and second, perpetual disqualification from public office. So, hindi po siya strictly criminal. So, yung strictest requirements of evidence that would apply to criminal case might not apply here. Depends, of course, on the impeachment court kung ano pong madesisyonan nila. At the end of the day, it would be a political exercise on the part of the senator judges on how they would vote. So, as far as we're concerned, I think we have enough evidence to at least convince our senator judges of why they should side with the prosecution on this part. But with that said, there would still be more avenues for additional evidence, definitely po. Especially kapag meron pong impeachment cases, there are some laws which actually have for their exemption impeachment cases for the request of more evidence. The power of subpoena, nandyan rin po yan sa impeachment court. So I'm pretty sure that the prosecution team will be open to all of these additional avenues to secure even more evidence po.
Sir, does that include yung ni-raise po ni Representative Kong Hu na 12.3 billion peso unsettled financial transactions in DepEd during the tenure of the Vice President? Because he is calling on the House to investigate the issue. Therefore, wala pa yung ebidensya on this. So will that be included?
Well, if we take a look po preliminarily on the articles ng ating impeachment, nandun na po yung mga grounds natin, and one of it would be yung graft and corruption. This would really depend po on the appreciation of the evidence. Although it is alarming confirming that there would be, ano po yung amount po natin, Ma'am Tina? 12 billion po.
12.3 B, sir.
12.3 billion, and this would be disallowances po ba?
Unsettled financial transactions.
So if it would be taken in consideration, kasi it's possible naman po, as what happens with COA, na may mga findings ang COA that are just in the regular course of business. But if it would be found to be in line with yung mga allegations po natin sa impeachment complaint, then I don't think the prosecution team would have any hindi po they will not shy away from making use of such evidence po siguro.
Thank you po.
Thank you, Tina. Bibian Gulia from ABS-CBN.
In connection with Ate Tina's question, are you also joining the call for the Good Government Committee to investigate the said transaction?
Unfortunately, as with many things po, as a member now of the prosecution team, I think I would have to exercise more restraint than other members of the House. I will not join the call, although we will anticipate eagerly any developments there. Kasi po, sa amin, because we already have filed the complaint, the House has already filed the complaint, and we are now anticipating the convening of the impeachment court. That would now be the proper venue for us to thresh out these issues if the prosecution team feels na kulang pa po yung evidence or that they would like to seek additional evidence. The proper venue would also be through the impeachment court. Although nothing precludes po the House from conducting inquiries in aid of legislation as part of its legislative functions, and nothing would preclude other members of the House po to answer this call po ng kapwa congressman po namin.
On whether we plan to bring this up sa Good Government Committee, yes, ma'am. In fact, napag-usapan na namin yan ng ibang members dahil sa proposal ni Congressman Conghon, balak po talaga yung talakayin sa Committee on Good Government.
Also, Kong Rog, you mentioned that you have more than enough evidence for the prosecution on the impeachment trial of the Vice President. Why is there a need to request for the subpoena of the bank records?
Well, you don't stop po just because you know that you have enough evidence. No? For as much as possible, you would like to establish, even if you have a strong case, any prosecutor would like to have an even stronger case. Kung ang sa criminal court nga po naghahanda ang prosecutor for guilt, evidence that would prove guilt beyond reasonable doubt, I think we should still have the diligence po no, as a prosecution team to prepare for such quantum of evidence. So this means po no, na talagang we have to really establish our case. While the Senate impeachment court might settle for a lower standard of evidence, it still would never hurt your case to become prepared with even more evidence. And talagang aside from that, aside from just the objective of yung impeachment court, this is also venue po no para malaman na po yung katotohanan kasi that has been a constant call po even in the House. Yung sa budget hearings po natin na hindi po nag-attend, hindi po tayo nalinawan kung ano ba talaga ang nangyayari noon nung mga committee hearings po natin sa good governance, committee hearings sa Quad, in cases na hindi po malinaw no yung ano ba talaga yung nangyari. So the impeachment court now, aside from a venue for redress in relation to these offenses, it is also a venue for the truth to finally be revealed po. So this is something that we like to stick to po siguro.
I think that's in relation to Article 4 po ba? Yung sa disclosure ng assets and properties sa SALN. But even without it, for example, if hindi i-grant yung subpoena, will the current evidence on that particular article stand?
We believe so. Actually, a lot of the push and pull in the complaint would be which articles to include, and by its inclusion and by its approval by not just 1/3 of the House but by 80% po no right now, I think that speaks volumes of the confidence that the House has in the evidence that would back these articles po.
Also, you mentioned earlier na may comments kayo no dun sa schedule ng impeachment trial. Are you saying na justified yung schedule ng impeachment trial to begin ng July after SONA?
I would not say justified po. I'm just saying, as a reaction po, no, sabi ni Ma'am Rose, as a reaction, given the context of which SP Escudero has made his remarks, given the context na alam na po natin kung which interpretation the SP has adopted, given the context of yung daloy po ng proceedings sa Senate according to none other than the Senate President. I believe then that is the practical consequence. Yung timeline na yan would be the practical consequence. But as to the justification, we leave it up to them, we leave it up to the people to see if it is justified. As mentioned, we will not make any calls for the Senate to rush this so that we would want to avoid any tainting of partiality, tainting of bias. But with that said, as mentioned, there are legal luminaries, sabi nga, nabanggit na po ni Kong Pami, that are of the opinion that they are of the opinion of a different interpretation po, no? Habang si SP Escudero ay nandun sa panig na ang interpretasyon dapat dito ay still within the bounds of Senate's legislative calendar, within the bounds of plenary action. Meron naman pong interpretasyon na kapag sinasabi ng saligang batas na the trial shall proceed forthwith, ibig sabihin agad-agad, and given na meron rin na interpretasyon na hindi ito legislative function kundi constituent power, ito ay mandato at authority within the Constitution itself that they can implement independent of legislative functions. Then there is also that yun na po yung interpretasyon na it should follow a faster timeline. So with the justification, it would depend kung alin ang interpretation po natin, pero yun lang po, I was just commenting on the context of which the statements were made.
Having said that, kung July pa po yun, 20th Congress na po, is there still point for the members of the 19th Congress, prosecution panel under the 19th Congress to prepare for the impeachment trial?
Well, gaya ng sinabi pa namin before, ready or not, dapat, here or not, dapat mag-ready na po kami. Whether it would be as early as March or whether it would be in the next Congress, the prosecution team will do its job, having been elected by the members of Congress in its constitutional duty to pursue this impeachment case. It would not be, hindi naman po siya sayang if ever, for whatever reason na halimbawa it crosses the 20th Congress and there would be a new set of prosecutors. We would be glad po na at least we've done our part, naka-ready na po yung ating articles of impeachment, naka-ready na po yung evidence, naka-ready na rin po yung mga witnesses that we would like to call, and we would happily pass it on po to the next batch if for whatever reason po.
Merong mga opinions na dapat ba i-refile pa, i-resubmit ba? Or yung new Congress, pwede bang maghain ng panibagong, or parang sabihin sa Senate na wag na ituloy yung impeachment trial? May mga ganun po bang? What's your opinion on that? Anong mangyayari kung 20th Congress?
Again, this would boil down to interpretation, but I think it's very clear po now that we have actually filed yung saligang batas, klaro naman po, the power to initiate impeachment cases is vested in the House, and this has already been done by the House. So we actually have pending impeachment complaint. So whether or not that could be stopped by the next Congress, I don't think it would be held by that. I understand meron pong interpretasyon na according to some legal luminaries na kapag tapos na po yung 19th Congress, no business can be carried over to the 20th. But I think that was another, based on the interpretation po on legislative functions po. I think a case that was cited for that was Garciliano versus, I forgot the specific case. Pero when I read it, particular naman po yun, that was regarding a Senate inquiry. Hindi naman po yun impeachment complaint, hindi naman po yun na constituent power. So I leave it to that po, no, kung ano yung interpretation po nila doon. Pero for me personally, my interpretation is that continuing po siya. An impeachment case filed now can still be tried the next. And we have, although it's not strict in the strictest sense, our basis, but historically maganda po yung unang-una, my experience experience po yung United States po dito. As we know, our Constitution lifts some parts. It's based on U.S. Constitution, U.S. jurisprudence, their body of laws. And doon po sa U.S., nangyayari po talaga yon. Yung Senado po nila ay continuing body rin. And in, I think, 4 instances of impeachment, one Congress files the impeachment complaint and it was already tried in the next Congress. So we have basis on that. Second, I am more akin to adopting the interpretation rin po ni SP Escudero. He gave a very logical example. When we look at our collegiate courts, for example, Supreme Court, when we look at the Court of Appeals and look at Sandigan Bayan, kapag marami po yung ating mga huwes, marami po yung ating mga hukom, maestrado, just because yung isa po, halimbawa, yung mauna, pumanaw, or nag-retire, nag-resign, hindi po ibig sabihin nun, uulit po yung case, no? Tuloy pa rin po yung kaso. So I think these two put together would make more sense in the context of an impeachment complaint rather than yung refiling interpretation po.
Thank you, Bibian. Next questions will come from Earl Tobias of IBC 13.
Kong Pami, Kong Rocha, good morning po. On another topic po, House Majority Leader Manuel Dalipe, kinundin niya po yung pagpa-file ng cases against Speaker Romualdez and other House leaders dito sa cases na na-file sa pagpasa ng 2025 budget. On his words po, he said, any attempt to portray it otherwise is a clear distortion of facts and an attack of legislative process itself. Furthermore, sinabi niya rin po na parang diversionary tactic ito because more telling is the involvement of former Speaker Pantaleon Alvarez as one of the complainants. As a sitting member of the House during the deliberations of the 2025 GAA, he had every opportunity to raise objections, questions, and allocations. Your sentiments po.
On my end, I'd like to clarify that it is anyone's absolute right to file any case, and it's very good that they filed so that it can go through the proper channels and that the House leadership will squarely face that. Having said that, I want to take note that it's very ironic that Mr. Alvarez barely participated in the non-stop budget hearings that we've had for the 2025 budget, whether sa committee level or sa plenary. Wala naman siyang ni-raise na concern bilang assistant majority leader. Parati po akong nasa session floor. Bihira ko po siyang nakita. So, nandun na po yung chance sana na kung meron siyang sisilipin, meron siyang mga tanong, masasagot na sana noon pa.
Additional lang po, no, siguro, not so much in the statement of Major Dalipe, but more on a comment lang po, no, on the nature that they filed. I think, of course, kagaya ng sinabi po ni Kong Pami, we would always welcome and respect everyone's right to seek redress, seek grievance before the court. Tama naman po yun kapag nakikita po natin na merong cause of action, pwede naman talaga tayo mag-file. Ngunit, important rin tanongin yung whys po, no? Sa tingin ko po, although we don't want to impute any malice on the part of those who filed, it's just really questionable. Ako personally, without going into the context po, no, na may prior redress naman po in the House na hindi naman po naitanong, yung pag-file mismo, I think if the question is really in relation not to politics but to the law itself, shouldn't it have been filed before the Supreme Court regarding Rule 65 po? Usually, kapag may katanungan po tukol sa isang batas, ang redress po nandun sa Supreme Court, hindi po siya criminal. Kasi po political function yung pagpasa ng batas, no? So, wala namang na-enrichment na alleged, I think, doon sa criminal nature that they are now filing. So, it's just curious po, no, on my part, bakit yun yung venue na pinili nila. And then, if we also look at the cast of characters, bakit I understand the issue is BICAM, pero yung House lang po yung respondents, no? To which a member rin po si Kong Alvarez, like mentioned ni Kong Pami, that there would have been a prior, he could have questioned it naman before. So while we welcome po na, I think it would have been better for the purposes, kung yung tanong lang po talaga yung issue ng mga blanco, it would have been better for the Supreme Court to rule on the procedures that the House would take, no? Na we stand by yung sinabi po ng ating leadership, we stand by po yung sinabi ni acting Chair Kimbo na ginawa naman lahat to with authority ng BICAM. So if there's a problem with that authority, if it is flawed in any way, that should have been questioned rather than yung allegedly criminal act of filling the blank. So these are just some questions that I think po siguro na dapat may tanong ng taong bayan in relation to the context of the filing of that case po.
Follow-up po, Kongs. Being that kayong dalawa po ni Kong Pami, you were active during the budget process then and the deliberations, mga plenary or sa committee hearing, would you think this filing of cases would gain traction, or at the end of the day, lalabas din yung katotohanan that the House did its duty well?
Ako una sa lahat, gusto ko lang sabihin that the Speaker isn't even part of the BICAM. So, sana po nilinaw po nila yung kinasuhan nila. Kung tungkol talaga sa BICAM yung ang kanilang kaso, hindi po parte ng BICAM ang Speaker. Pangalawa, ano yung tanong?
Do you think magpa-progress pa po itong final nila?
We'll leave it to the courts para sa pag-andar nun. Ang House leadership naman, ready naman to answer anything at any time.
Last from my end po, kung sa attendance lang or sa pagharap ni BP Sara sa impeachment court, given na meron na kayong sapat na evidence, and you said better nga kung a-attend siya, pero kung hindi man siya pumunta, handa rin ba ng strategy, or is that one of the things na pinagpaplanuhan ng House Prosecution Panel po? Kung in case, piliin ni BP na hindi siya umattend.
Yes po, I would say ready. Not naman na intentional na pinaghahandaan, although historically po, no, hindi po siya nag-attend sa ating mga hearings. But you have to be prepared. When you're seeking a case like this, you have to be... you have to stand by your complaint with all evidence that you might have, and anticipating also the evidence that you might not be able to get. You don't file naman po yung case na baka sakali po makakuha pa ng ebidensya. So I would say what we would like to achieve with this, definitely, as advocating for yung impeachment complaint, talagang to establish yung evidence independent po, no, of whatever the adverse party might produce. So dapat meron rin po talaga, when we do have yung aming sariling evidence, we have our own lineup of witnesses that would have the tendency to establish po yung kaso. So yun po.
Thank you, Earl. Billy Vegas from Abante Politico, you are recognized.
Hihingi lang po ng opinion nyo. Ang ini-insist po kasi sa Senate, nag-adjourn sila ng February 2 nang hindi nagagalaw yung articles of impeachment. Pero meron pong column sa Inquirer. Ang point naman niya, pwede naman kasing hindi muna nag-adjourn yung Senate kasi based dun sa legislative calendar, pwede mag-session ng House and Senate hanggang Friday, February 7. Comment lang po.
Ang comment ko ay tama ka, Billy. Kasi base sa schedule, sa napagkasundo ang calendar of session ng third regular session, ang pag-resume ng session ay nagsimula noong January 13, 2025 at nagtatapos ng Feb 7, 2025. Natapos ang session, ang plenary session nila nung Feb 5, pero technically may panahon pa, may 2 araw pa po. Pero having said that, again, ginagalang natin ang kung ano man ang gagawin ng ating Senado. At on the end ng House, na-impeach na po namin si Vice President Sara Duterte.
In addition lang po no, siguro, again, this is all harping on that one interpretation. It is bound by legislative functions. By the term nga po, legislative calendar. In addition to what Kong Pami said, on that layer, sa legislative pa lang, mukhang may oras pa pala. But even before that, I still would I'm of the interpretation, of the opinion, nandun pa rin po tayo na yung impeachment ay constituent power, not bound by yung legislative rules, legislative function, and therefore not bound by the legislative calendar. But yun lang po yung in addition siguro, Boss Billy.
Thank you, Billy. Next question from Jelly Mendez of DWIC.
Sir, nabanggit niyo po kanina yung welcome po sa Kamara, yung mga gusto pang tumistigo or yung may mga karagdagan pang ebidensya. Sa Senado po ba possible na i-recommend nyo rin yung mga tumistigo dun sa mga nakaraang pagdinig?
Yes po, anything's possible po. I don't think there is any prohibition on the part of, I don't think any prohibition will be adopted by yung impeachment court na saying kung may testigo from a previous hearing, di na po pwede gamitin. In the opposite nga po, mas malakas nga po yung kaso ng mga testigo that appear before a previous hearing. They might not even have to attend yung sa impeachment court kasi nga po, under oath na po yung mga statements nila. So, I think that's one opinion that would even make it stronger basis na sila pa po yung maging yung testigo po nila yung maging basis. So, yun lang po.
Sir, your side po regarding dito sa payag po ni SP Escudero na minamadali daw po ng mga kongresista yung Senado regarding sa impeachment.
Di po ako sure kung saan po nagagaling yung idea na minamadali. By the timing lang po siguro ng pag-file ng House, pag-transmit ng House, it was on the last day. I don't think any pressure was meant to be exerted on the Senate. And but understandably, on a personal level, meron naman po talagang mga may opinion na dapat gawin na to agad-agad. Whether these are personal sentiments of congressmen, yung mga ating mga kababayan, of certain officials of the House. Pero I don't think there was any official move, action, or communication from the House that would indicate in any way na minamadali po sila. So, I'm not quite sure po saan po yung nagagaling. But I would understand po with in a court of public opinion, parang baka doon po nanggaling yung sentiment na parang rushed po siya.
Sir, yung payag naman po na hindi daw po magpapatawag ng special session yung Senado dahil hindi naman daw po special si VP Sara.
That would be the wisdom of the Senate po siguro. The consideration of the special session would be something to be considered by, first and foremost, the President in calling for the special session and the Senate po for requesting it if ever. So if in their opinion, in their wisdom, yun yung reasoning po nila, then we would have to respect that po siguro.
Thank you, Jelly. Are there any further questions from our media colleagues here? If there are none, we're going to entertain few questions from our media friends who are now covering the kick-off rally of Administration Slate's Alyansa para sa Bagong Pilipinas, who are now in Ilocos Norte. About, sir? Phone in. Okay, from Kat Porbes. Sir, first question, ma'am, magiging election issue ba itong impeachment ni VP Sara? And then, may reaction po ba kayo dun sa survey ng SWS na nagsasabing pabor sila sa ayudang ibinibigay ng pamahalaan? Two questions.
On the first question, I think definitely magiging election issue po ito, and it should be welcome. I think this is a sentiment already mentioned also by Senate President Escudero na compared to yung usual election po natin na ang binoboto po natin ay base sa kasikatan or personality politics, at least ngayon and magkakaroon tayo ng issue kung ano po ang tingin ng ating mga kandidato sa impeachment complaint, and mas makita po natin kung ano ang kanilang stand, ano po ang nilang gagawin, ano po ang kanilang mga personal convictions. So, although not strictly a requirement for election, not strictly requirement ang plataforma or issues like this sa isang election, the fact that it's being the election will happen now in the midst this context, I think it really will be an election issue. And I think it is something that should be welcome po, no? Hindi po dapat siya maging consideration na external factor. So, yun.
Sa katanungan kung ito ay election issue, absolutely naniniwala po ako na ito ay isang election issue dahil dapat nating tanungin ng ating mga ihinahalal kung kung dapat bang panugutin ng mga tao patungkol sa pagwawaldas ng pera ng bayan, patungkol sa hindi paggamit ng tama ng pondo ng bayan, patungkol sa hindi pagsunod sa saligang batas, patungkol sa paggamit ng pondo ng bayan. So, isang malaking test po yan sa lahat ng kandidato sa aming mga paninindigan para sa bayan. Maraming salamat po.
Sir, ma'am, yung second question about ayuda.
Well, personally, masayang-masaya ako dun sa survey na yon kasi it vindicates what we've always said, no? Na itong mga issues patungkol sa ayuda ay pawang ingay lamang at talaga namang hinahanap ito ng taong bayan. Kasi yung 4Ps, dinidirekta yan para sa talagang mga sa poorest of the poor. Ito namang AKAP ay nakadirekta para sa mga near poor na isa ring malaking porsyento ng ating populasyon. Kaya masaya po kami na yun po ang lumabas sa survey kasi ito naman ay bagay na talagang pinaniniwalaan namin nun pa man.
Thank you, sir and ma'am. Another question, last question from Gab Lalo, Inquirer Online. According po kay former Supreme Court Justice Adolf Ascuna, a premier of the 1987 Constitution, immediately po talaga dapat gawin ng Senado ang kanilang trabaho sa impeachment. Immediate as in ngayon na at hindi after 4 months or after or so na. Any comment po?
I think si former Justice Kuna yung isa po sa legal luminaries that I was referring to. Nandun po siya sa interpretasyon na dapat po talaga may sagawa na yung ating impeachment trial. If I'm not mistaken po, yung kanyang opinion, if I read it right, yun nga po yung nasa side na hindi po legislative function yung impeachment. Ito po ay constituent power. Ang I think basis nito is that if you look at yung proceedings po natin for legislative function, nasa Article 6 po yun on legislative powers of the legislative branch. Pero yung article, I think it was Article 13 po, no, yung impeachment is on accountability of public officers. So I think ginawa niyang basis yun for the interpretation na it is a constituent power independent of yung legislative functions of the Senate and Congress. And therefore, it must be taken on its own timeline. Yung pag-interpret nga po ng and the trial shall proceed forthwith. Yung forthwith being agad, interpretation nito should be taken independently sa legislative. So I think dun po nanggagaling. And if the question is yung reaction po doon, ako personally, I do stand by that interpretation. And I don't think he is alone. I think there are other legal luminaries who are of the opinion po, no, na dapat nasa constituent power interpretation yung impeachment case.
Pampami. Okay na. Thank you. Before we conclude our press conference, sir, ma'am, baka meron kayong parting words for today's press con.
Una, maraming salamat sa ating house media sa inyong mga katanungan. Hindi po porket tumigil na po ang plenary session ay tumitigil po ang pagtrabaho namin dito sa house. Tuloy-tuloy pa rin po kahit po panahon na ng kampanya para sa iba nating mga kandidato. Tuloy-tuloy pa rin po ang pagtatrabaho ng inyong mga house members. Maraming salamat.
Likewise, maraming salamat po sa ating mga kaibigan sa media. Thank you for the opportunity. Sana po naisagot namin ang inyong mga katanungan. And I guess parting message kasi start na po officially ng election campaign na vote wisely na lang po. You know, for everyone. Let's take everything into consideration. But, opo, So, yun lang, something na malala po natin sa ating mga kababayan in the time of election period. Talagang pakinggan po talaga natin ating mga kandidato. Gawing basehan po dito ay plataforma at aksyon, hindi lamang yung kanilang kasikatan or personality politics. Yun lamang po. Maraming salamat.
With that, thank you. House Assistant Majority Leader and Taguig City 2nd District Representative Amparo Maria Pami J. Zamora and One Rider Party List Representative Rods L. Gutierrez, who is a member of the 11-man House Prosecution Panel, for joining us today. And to everyone, maraming salamat po ulit sa inyong partisipasyon. Good morning, Honorable House Leaders, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our press conference. I'm Ryan Ponce Pacpaco. As part of our traditional practice, we will give our resource persons the opportunity to deliver their short opening remarks. Today, we're fortunate to have one of the members of the 11-man House Prosecution Panel in the name of House Committee on Good Government and Public Accountability Chairman and Manila 3rd District Representative Joel R. Chua, and House Committee on Overseas Workers Affairs Chairman and Tingog Party List Representative Jude A. Asidre. Chairman Chua.
Ay, magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Susubukan po naming sagutin sa abot ng aming makakaya ang lahat po ng inyong mga katanungan. So muli po maraming salamat.
Magandang umaga po sa lahat.